Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ursula Miller, and I'm the Communications Manager for the City of Cincinnati's Department of Transportation. I'd like to remind everyone that your cameras are off and you're muted because this is a webinar format. After the presentation, we're going to conduct a question and answer session, and we'll explain that process as we get closer to that part of the meeting. And to get us started, we're going to ask you, our audience, several questions as part of a poll. And I'm going to let Haley Taylor take over and explain how that will work. Thank you.
Good evening. We have set up a very short poll for you all to take this evening. On this slide, we have divided our region geographically into several zones. Please use this map as a reference to answer the first question when the poll appears. There are 3 questions and they should only take a few seconds to answer. Go ahead and start answering at your leisure here. Okay, about 30% of you have answered. We're going to give it a few more minutes, or a few more seconds rather. You'll need to scroll down to answer all 3 questions. Okay, maybe 10 more seconds. We have about 50% of you participating. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And here are the results. So it looks like the majority are coming from Cincinnati West Side area. And most of you are using the Viaduct less than once a week. And you heard about the meeting online or via the website. So thank you for taking the poll, and we will go back to Ursula for the introduction.
All right. Tonight, we're going to have several speakers. The first is Eric Beck. Eric is the county engineer for Hamilton County. And following Eric will be Bill Shefsick. Bill's the project manager for the replacement project for the city of Cincinnati. And our esteemed consultant, Sajid Abbas with TY Lin International. Bill, you can take off for now. Eric, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ursula. Good evening. My name is Eric Beck, and I'm the Hamilton County engineer representing all residents of Hamilton County. I would like to thank you for your attendance and interest in this very important project. Many of you on this call are here because you have a vested interest. You travel on the bridge. You depend on it to get to work, to get to school, and the other places you travel. If you're from Westwood, Cheviot, Green Township, Camp Washington, Price Hill, wherever you are coming from in the county, this bridge has a major impact on our local economy, beyond the direct impact on travelers. This major infrastructure project creates jobs, impacts growth, and spurs development, not just on the west side of Hamilton County, but to all the residents of Hamilton County and the tri-state area. This project is a great example of good governance. When we work together, the outcomes benefit all. The Hamilton County Engineer's Office has a long-standing relationship with the city's Department of Transportation and Engineering. Part of this relationship is an agreement to commit $1 million of municipal road funds annually to 27 bridges within the city of Cincinnati. One of these bridges is Western Hills Viaduct. Some of the projects that have been recently completed with this relationship are the 8th Street Viaduct, Marburg Avenue Bridge, and Kennedy Avenue Bridge. Tonight, we're here to update you on where we stand with the Western Hills Viaduct project. It is the largest project my office has undertaken, both in complexity and cost. Comments from previous public hearings, as well as those from our other partners, the Ohio Department of Transportation, the railroads, and public utilities, have also weighed into the decisions made in getting the design to the point that it is now. I would like to stress that the images you'll be seeing are just renderings at this point. During the final design, there may be changes made for any number of reasons, including potential input received as a result of the meeting tonight. Again, thank you for being here. And now I'd like to turn it over to Bill Shefczyk to discuss the details of the structure.
All right, thank you, Eric. Hope everybody can hear me, and good evening. Thank you to all who are participating tonight. So in our presentation, we'll be talking about a few things. First, I want to touch on the current condition of the viaduct. Second, we'll talk a little bit about the history of the project and the status of the project where it is today. Third, we'll be talking about the recent study done by our consultant, T.Y. Lin, the study to determine really the best bridge type to replace the existing viaduct. And finally, we'll talk about what's coming next, like status of funding, and then we'll be here to answer any questions that you may have. So to start with, we'll talk about the condition of the viaduct. So the first thing I'd like to say and stress is that the viaduct is safe for the traveling public. Our intention is to keep the viaduct safe and operational until we can get a replacement structure in place. So we are vigilant in performing inspections and doing maintenance several times a year to ensure the safety of the viaduct and the traveling public. Recently, there were weight limits posted on the viaduct, which are restricting very heavy trucks from using the viaduct. At this point, it's only heavy trucks. We're not reducing any buses or any other normal truck traffic, even semis. It's just the very heavy trucks that are limited to use the viaduct. And shortly we will be installing some netting on the viaduct over the lower deck to help catch debris from falling onto the lower deck. So the viaduct is considered to be in poor condition. As many of you probably know, it's 88 years old. It's at the end of its useful life, and it needs to be replaced. Next slide, please. Thanks. So a little bit about the history. Back in 2010, the city and the county began planning on how to address the issue of the aging viaduct. Following 2010 and over the 8 years following, considerable study was made with input from the public and key stakeholders to decide what to do with the viaduct. Basically, at the end of that study period, it was decided that the best option was to replace the existing viaduct and to replace the viaduct with a new bridge immediately to be constructed south of the existing viaduct. So the timeline we're showing here on the slide shows where we're currently at in the life of the project. And as you can see right now, we're in the final engineering, final design phase of the project. So I'd just like to say, although no physical construction has been started yet, there's been a lot of good work done to date on the project, including our pursuit of funding, which I'll speak about a little bit later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the project area. What we're looking at here to the north there is the existing viaduct. And to the south with the red lines through it is the proposed alignment of the new viaduct. So the limits of the project extend at the west at the intersection of Harrison, Queen City, and Westwood. And going to the east extends to the intersection of the Viaduct, McMillan, and Central Parkway. So the new bridge will be constructed approximately 50 feet south of the existing viaduct. By constructing the new bridge to the south, it allows the existing viaduct to remain in place and open to traffic for the majority of the bridge construction, reducing impact to traffic an inconvenience to the traveling public while the new bridge is being constructed. The new bridge will be a single deck with 4 lanes of traffic in each direction. There will be an 8-foot sidewalk on the north side of the new bridge, and there will be a 14-foot wide shared use path on the south side. At the west, the shared use path will connect into the new path constructed as part of the MSD Lick Run project. There will also be a connection with the shared use path down to State Street. And at the east end, the shared use path will connect directly with Central Parkway. The project also includes improvements at the McMillan Central Parkway intersection, introducing the ability to make a left-hand turn from McMillan to Central Parkway, where that doesn't presently exist today. Finally, at the east, there's a new tie-in to I-75. The total cost of the project is estimated at $335 million. Next slide, please. There we go. So the picture in this slide shows the current interchange at I-75. So this interchange will be rebuilt to connect into a new viaduct, and as part of the various improvements along I-75, which are being designed, constructed, and funded by the Ohio Department of Transportation. The cost of the new interchange and the improvements north and south along I-75 needed to build the new interchange is approximately $153 million. Now, this $153 million is an additional cost to the $335 million needed for the viaduct construction. Next slide, please. So the most recent activity on the project, an engineering study has been conducted to determine the optimal bridge type to replace the existing viaduct. The study was performed by our consultant, T.Y. Lin International. T.Y. Lin, during the study, had significant collaboration and input from the city and the county, ODOT, the major railroads and utilities affected by the project. The result of the study, the type of bridge which has been selected is an extrados type bridge. Determining the bridge is a milestone in the life of our project, we think. And here to talk more about the study and the proposed bridge, we have Sajid Abbas from T.Y. Lin. So at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Sajid.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, and thank you all participants for making time to attend this meeting. I am Dr. Sajid Abbas, Project Manager for the Design Consultant at T.Y. Lin International. Next slide, please. One of the primary challenges in this project is to span over the Queensgate rail yard without causing any significant interruptions to the railway operations. Queensgate rail yard, which is operated by CSX Railways, is one of the largest rail yards in the country. It receives freight trains. Trains are then classified and assembled in the classification yard. Locomotives are serviced and refueled. Assembled trains are then stored on departure tracks and then released based on a predetermined schedule. To the right-hand side of the slide, you can also see the intermodal yard. The intermodal yard manages container traffic, containers which are moved to and from the trains. So it's a very busy yard. Next slide, please. At the top right corner of this slide, you can see an image of the immense expanse of the rail yard. Western Hills Viaduct is at the southern end of the yard. As you know, CSX Railways operates the rail yard. Also, Norfolk Southern operates 3 tracks that go through the rail yard. The rail yard operates 24/7 and all 365 days of the year. Construction access over railroad tracks is limited to short time windows. This has a direct impact on the type of bridge that can be built across the rail yard. Next slide, please. As Bill mentioned earlier, the selected bridge type is the extra-rost bridge. Let's talk a little bit more about the various bridge types considered for this project and the evaluation criteria used to make this selection. So we looked at several families of bridges. These included bridges which are fully assembled next to the rail yard and then launched across the tracks using self-propelled motorized tractors. This would be the arch bridge. Bridges assembled in short segments of 60 to 90 feet. This is the next family. And then incrementally launched across the rail yard. This would include the truss and the trapezoidal steel box. And the next family is bridges which are built in cantilever. No false work is required in the rail yard, and all construction is from the top using form travelers. This would include the extra DOST, segmental concrete, and cable stay bridges. So the team prepared preliminary design concepts and had extensive discussions with all important stakeholders, foremost being CSX and Norfolk Southern Railways. We also held several meetings with Duke Energy that owns a substation in the rail yard close to the proposed bridge alignment. Designs were presented to and discussed with Ohio DOT and Federal Highway Administration, their comments and input solicited. These designs were evaluated using a criteria listed on the right-hand side of this slide. The criteria includes cost, which is very important, of course, aesthetics, durability, railroad preference, and this one is the most important. Constructability, how easy it is for the contractor to assemble this bridge over the rail yard. Claims potential, addressing potential risks with a given bridge type in the context of keeping the rail yard operations going. Traffic flow, and last but not the least, the bridge drainage. Poor drainage can cause onset of corrosion in the bridge. These criteria were then given appropriate weights and compared in a matrix format. Extra DOST bridge was the highest scoring bridge type and selected for further design development. The next slides will show more details of the selected bridge type. Next one, please. So let's talk about the definition a little bit. The extra DOST bridge has elements both from a pre-stressed concrete girder bridge and a cable-stayed bridge. The term extra DOST is used for the exterior curve of an arch, as shown in the lower left corner of the slide, and was first used by Jacques Mathieva, a very famous, well-known French bridge engineer, alluding to the form of the cables connected to the shadow tower, as you see on the right-hand side of the slide. Next slide, please. As Bill said earlier, the bridge will be located on an alignment slightly south of the existing viaduct. It will have a single deck with 4 lanes in each direction. The inner lanes will carry the traffic to and from the interstate, I-75, and the outer lanes will handle local traffic. There'll be a 14 feet wide shared used path on the south side of the bridge and an 8 feet wide pedestrian walkway on the north side. Next one, please. So here is a rendering of the bridge looking southwest. The bridge has a main span over the rail yard of 560 feet and then 2 side span of about 280 feet. The overall length of the bridge is about 2,700 feet. Next one, please. This is a view of the bridge looking southeast towards the downtown. As you can see, the main bridge has 4 concrete towers. The total height of the towers from the ground is about 150 feet and above the deck about 100 feet. There's a harp pattern of cable stays on the bridge. It looks quite elegant, of course, in my opinion. The superstructure consists of steel longitudinal box girders and transverse floor beams with a composite concrete deck on the top. Next one, please. And here's a view of the shared use path. This is on the south side of the bridge. It's about 14 feet wide. The railing and the lighting details, these will be developed during the detailed design phase and based on the input that we get from the public. And what you see in these renderings are simply placeholders for now. Next one, please. And this image shows the construction sequence that will be used for the new Western Hills Viaduct. In a typical erection sequence, elements of the longitudinal girders, this is the long girders, they will go up first. these will be hooked up to cable stays, which are in turn connected to the towers. Next, transverse girders are lifted into position. And next, concrete deck panels are added. You can see the panels at the very tip of the cantilever there. So the key thing about this method is it does not require any support from the ground and minimizes any interruptions to the rail tracks underneath. All the work is done from the top. The bridge that you see in the image above is the Port Mann Bridge in Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a project designed by T. Violet. And back to Bill Shefsick.
Okay, thank you very much, Sajid. That was very good. So going forward on the project, next slide, please. So now that we have a preferred structure, sorry about that. Now that we have a preferred structure, we will continue on the detailed design. In tandem with doing design, we will continue on working on necessary property acquisitions for the project. And we'll be moving forward with relocation of Duke Energy electric transmission lines and substation, and the relocation of a railroad track within the railroad yard, which are both necessary for the construction of the bridge. The construction activities will start as early as 2021 at the west end, starting at the west end of the project, with building demolitions, site preparations, and potentially early bridge foundation work. We are planning on putting out a bid to start the work next year. Next slide, please. As stated previously in the presentation, the current estimate to replace the viaduct is $335 million. The city and county have been aggressively pursuing funding, and to date, we have more than 1/3 of the amount needed to replace the viaduct. And the majority of that funding has been secured over the last 2 years. Next slide, please. Given the momentum on the funding we've received already, we're confident that we're going to be able to secure the remaining dollars needed for the project. We continue to pursue every avenue of funding available, including these potential funding sources listed on the slide here. Next slide, please. So we value and appreciate any feedback we can get. If you go to our project website, you will find a feedback form which you can fill out online and submit. Like I said, we'll appreciate any feedback. So if you have the time to fill out the feedback form, that would be great. You can do it sometime after this meeting, at any time. It'll be posted on our website for at least 30 days. Next slide, please. So wrapping up, I would again like to take the opportunity to thank everyone who has participated. Now we will go on to our question and answer session tonight, and I will turn the session over to Laura.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Just want to run through a couple logistics as far as how the question and answer session will run. For those of us who are joining us online through Zoom, you have 2 ways of letting us know if you have a question. At the lower or at the bottom of your screen, you should have a raise hand icon. And if you raise your hand, we will know to call on you. And when it's your turn to speak, we will unmute you and let you know that it's your turn to ask your question. You can also click on the Q&A function, and we will try to answer the questions through that channel as well. If you are joining us by phone this evening, when you're on the phone, if you dial *9, that will allow you to raise your hand. And when it's your time to speak, you will get a prompt to unmute yourself. And to unmute yourself, you use *6. So with that, we're going to open up the questions, and I see that we do have one hand raised by Tom Hackett. So Tom, I am going to allow you to speak.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So my question is revolving around the procurement of the bridge, and how is the city and county going to let this project? Will it be a design build project, a low bid construction project that's fully designed by the city and county, or will there be a best value procurement process?
So Laura, I can take that question.
Great.
So right now, the project is on a traditional design bid build path. We are investigating different procurement methods going forward, looking at possible general manager, general contractor arrangements. We're trying to get a contractor on board early to get some involvement into the design process. We intend for the project to be phased since we do not have all the funding in place. Our plan is to spend the funding that we have in place already to build as much as we can, where we can. Some of those projects may be bid as traditional, and going forward, we may, expand the procurement into different methods.
Okay, great. We have a question from Chris Carr, who asks, are there plans for the space at the west end of the current viaduct when it is removed?
There are currently no plans for the space.
Okay, and then we're going back to a phone caller, and excuse me, I'm lost my cursor. Okay, this person is listed as FIA Meetings. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Go ahead.
Hi, I had two questions. One was, is the access to Spring Grove Avenues going to be maintained? And the second one was, since construction is being done around maintaining access for the rail yard functions, how will the existing Western Hills Viaduct be demolished?
Okay, those are good. Those are very good questions. So I'll start with the first one, access to Spring Grove. So what we're showing here on the plan, there's essentially no direct access to Spring Grove Avenue from the new viaduct as it is currently now with the existing viaduct, where we have the lower deck connecting to Spring Grove. That connection to Spring Grove is related to the interchange at I-75 and how that final configuration is going to occur. That interchange is going to be studied more in detail starting this summer. ODOT's going to be hiring a consultant to do some more design work, start the design work on the interchange itself. That time we will be investigating the connections to Spring Grove and how traffic can get from the viaduct to Spring Grove Avenue. On the second question, that's a very good question. The demolition of the bridge is going to be a big challenge. There's not a plan in place for that yet. Right now, we've been focusing our discussion.
Bill, if I may comment on that a little bit, I think it's a very interesting question. May I?
Go ahead, Sergeant.
So demolition, as Bill pointed out, indeed is going to be quite challenging if we are not going to interrupt rail operations, and that's a very perceptive question. So what would need to be done is to remove things so debris does not fall on rail tracks. And we would start with the upper deck. We would start with the middle. We would basically go ahead and saw cut the concrete deck into small segments while it is still supported on the beams underneath. And then these small elements, we will basically flip them up, load them on trucks and cart them away, because we will have access both on the front and in the back. And once these elements, the deck elements are gone, then we will remove the beams in between and then gradually work towards the abutments. Once the upper deck is all gone, we will work on the lower deck. Now, the real challenge would be how we will remove the columns. And I think we need to do some more work, because columns would require access to the rail yard and maybe a ram hose working over there in the rail yard. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. Thank you, Sergeant. Does that answer the question?
I'm sorry, I disabled the speaking. My apologies on that.
Okay.
We have another question from Chris Carr, who's asking, will the shared use paths be officially designated as bikeways so that bikes can legally ride on them?
So it is the intent that the shared use path will be in place to allow bikes to legally use them. Yes.
Great. Our next speaker is Tony Walsh. I'm sorry, I'm getting a message saying that Tony's not able to speak. Tony, if you can type in your questions into the Q&A, we'll try to get to your question. We have a phone caller. The phone number ends in 3550. And you should be able to ask a question at this point. If you're on the phone, press *6 to speak and unmute.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm on here. All right. Yeah.
We've got you now.
Left-hand exits that are being removed. Where is the right-hand exit going to be for that particular bridge to come back around? And what properties are going to be affected by that?
So I'm not sure if I understand the question. So the right-hand exit from 75?
Yes, so they're taking all left-hand out like they've done all the way out 75.
Right.
And like they put the right-hand exit in for Hopple Street. There's going to have to be an exit for the Viaduct, correct?
Right.
Okay, so what properties are going to be affected by that right-hand exit?
As far as I know, no properties are. It's going to be a tight diamond interchange. And Scott Brown from ODOT is here, and he can answer a little more on that. But with respect to the interchange, it will not be like a Hopple Street interchange. It'll be a tight diamond, and there will be no property takes for the interchange itself.
So actually there won't be no property as far as on Central Parkway or the McNicken area that will be took to use for the Viaduct?
Essentially, that's correct. We have to still do a little more work on the intersection of McMillan and Central Parkway, but we are trying to avoid property as much as we can.
Oh, okay. All righty. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. We have another question from Chris Card that says, can you say more about the ODOT plan for the I-75 ramps?
Laura, I don't know if you can go back into the presentation and show up that that plan of the viaduct.
Yes, bear with me a second. Sorry, it's being a little slow this evening. There we go.
There we go. Oops. So maybe a little hard to see in this drawing here, but where the bridge crosses over I-75, the local traffic is on the outside of the bridge, and those are all, and that traffic's going to and from Central Parkway and the McMillan intersection. In the center is where the interstate traffic is going to be carried. There's a difference in elevation, difference in height between those two. So the interstate traffic bridge is lower than the other ones. So essentially there's going to be ramps coming up basically alongside, parallel to the highway, up to the bridge over I-75. And it's all interstate traffic's going to be in the middle of the new bridge of the viaduct.
Okay, our next question is from JT Punt. The question is, will there be exits to State Street and Harrison Road on the west side of the new bridge?
At this point, there is not a roadway connection. The only connection that we are planning now is the pedestrian and from the shared use path, pedestrian and bike connection down to State Avenue.
Okay, and we have another call from FIA Meetings. Please let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You can go ahead and speak now.
Hi, it's actually EFIA. It's the East Price Hill Improvement Association Community Council. One further question as far as the demolition of the existing viaduct goes. Are the costs for that demolition included in the project costs currently?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Okay, we have an anonymous question, excuse me, from an anonymous attendee. The question is, will there be any lane spacing out bike or other vehicles, i.e. scooters, versus people walking? Also, what other considerations are made to modify the path as needed, such as adding benches or trees?
To be honest, I don't think I can satisfactorily answer that question here. I'd have to probably look into that a little more to give you a better answer.
Okay.
I just would say, you know, we're still early in design here, so we haven't looked at all the, you know, aspects of the shared use path, or, you know, other aspects of some of the aspects of the bridge. So, you know, that's definitely something we'll look at.
Great. Wade would like to know, will the shared use path on the Western Hills Viaduct connect to shared use path in the Lick Run area?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. The shared use path will connect into the Lick Run Greenway project. Is running along the south side of the viaduct. That's what we're proposing. And then there'll be a crossover at the intersection of Harrison and Westwood to get to the trail for the Lick Run.
Okay, great.
When I say crossover, I mean on-grade crossover at the intersection.
Okay, good. Tom Hackett would like to know what kind of procurement method, excuse me, I can't pronounce that this evening. Procurement method will the city and county utilize? Design build, low bid construction, best value?
So I think we touched on that a little bit in another question, and maybe from Tom,
yes.
But yeah, you know, right now it's the traditional design bid build path, but we are looking at different procurement methods.
Great. Kat Ross has a couple of questions. The first question is, what happened to the determination that a double-decker bridge would be the most efficient design? The last time public hearings, or during the last public hearings, this was identified as the most efficient design.
Well, when we were doing the preliminary engineering on the project, we did not have a good way to make this bridge a single deck. We did not come up with a good enough idea to make it a single deck, essentially. And it's from comment that we received from the public, it seemed like it was preferable to have a single deck just from user experience of the facility. The change that happened in our most recent study was that we considered putting the interstate traffic down the center of the bridge. At the time of the preliminary study, we did not consider that. And by doing that, it really improved the roadway geometry at both ends of the project. I don't know, Sajid, I'm gonna kick this to you a little bit to see if you want to say anything more about that change. I know it's something that that you and the folks at your company came up with, which we all thought was a very good idea.
Bill, I think your response is quite comprehensive. I think the wider deck or a single deck solution, the best benefit that we have from that is an improvement in the traffic flow. We were able to get rid of basically additional ramps that we were going to build on the west end to take care of the weave distance. We don't have to do that anymore. It's simple and straightforward. The other issue with the double-decker solution was that the bridge sections were very heavy. When you hoist the heavy sections above the rail tracks, you need longer windows. The windows that we can get from the railways, they are 2 hours, at most 4 hours. So if you want to run a 6-hour operation, swinging a very heavy bridge section into position and then bolting it over there above rail traffic, that's very difficult, that's very challenging. And this particular solution was more amenable, acceptable to both railways, CSX and Norfolk Southern. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Sajid.
Okay, great. Kat Ross also asks I think she means in the current construction of the current Western Hills Viaduct, the railroads financed quite a bit of money towards construction. Are they going to contribute this time?
So that is true. When the original viaduct was constructed, the railroads contributed approximately 2/3 of the cost of the construction of the new viaduct, and the rest was left to city and I think streetcar company at the time. At this time, there's no talk or offer from the railroad to contribute anything toward the construction of the new bridge. At this point, they're cooperating with us and working out the design and working out the logistics of how we're going to construct it. But that's really, at this point, is as far as we've gotten.
Okay. The follow-on question to that is, what utilities will share the bridge with the traffic? Are they contributing to the financing as well?
So at this point, well, let me step back. So on the existing viaduct, there's a water main. There is used to be a gas main. There's telephone, electric crossing the viaduct. At this point, there will be no utilities on the new viaduct other than what's needed for streetlights in road operations itself. So there's no private, quasi-public, private utilities are planned to be on the new bridge.
Okay. And will there be capability on the new bridge to support light rail in the future?
The bridge will be designed with a significant strength to accommodate light rail. And Sajid, I'm going to ask you to elaborate a little bit on that, if you could.
Yes, indeed. We will design the structure to carry light rail transit. And I think that it'll have to wait for the future plans developed by the city to bring light rail through this route. So we have done that on several projects before. So primarily it will carry highway traffic, but it would have enough strength, it would have enough capacity to carry light rail. We have to do a few things in regards to this particular question. We have to, of course, work out the loading that would be imposed by the light rail. We have to introduce stray current protection in the design. So we will do all of those things and make sure that the structure is prepared to receive it. But the primary challenge would be to bring the rail to this particular crossing. Thank you, Bill.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Sajid.
Okay, we'll go to another online listener. This is Tony Walsh. It looks like Tony does not have the capability to, speak through Zoom. So Tony, if you'll enter in your question into the Q&A, we'll come back to you. Now we'll hear from Dave Warmold.
Hi, Bill. I believe you had mentioned that there's no plans to have the existing water main on the new bridge. Is Waterworks currently in the design phase for relocating the water main? Will that happen before the viaduct project itself starts?
They are looking at alternate routes for the to replace the existing main. Whether that occurs before the construction of the viaduct is yet to be determined. You know, anything they are aware of, you know, our plans for the new viaducts. So, you know, they'd be working around our proposed structure if they're going to put an alignment down, say State Avenue or elsewhere near the existing viaduct. But at this point, you know, whether the line is on the existing viaduct or not, it's not really impeding our progress of the replacement project.
Yeah, I was just curious about the portion that would have to be removed out of the subway tunnels for the Central Parkway reconstruction.
That I'm not sure, Dave. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And would the Central Parkway work, is that part of the ODOT project, or would that be part of the viaduct project itself?
That's to be determined. I mean, at this point, I think it's part of the viaduct project, but you know, how that all interfaces and coordinates with the interchange is yet to be determined, and that'll be more fleshed out when the interchange design is more fully developed.
Okay. And one last thing I was going to ask is the city considered pursuing FRA CRECI funding for at least the railroad work associated with the viaduct?
Yeah, we have. We've not submitted any applications for it. We have discussed it with CSX during the last round of funding that was announced for call for applications, but you know, we just at the time we didn't pursue it. It didn't seem like a good fit.
Okay.
Charles Matthews asked, could you share some thoughts on the lifespan of the new viaduct? Are 8 lanes sufficient for the anticipated traffic volume in the future? And is there going to be a breakdown lane?
Okay, so I'll start off on the lifespan. So we're looking at, you know, trying to do things that we can build a structure with an extended life, 125 years or more, hopefully. You know, we're looking at, you know, different options as far as, you know, stainless steel for the rebar, you know, high performance concrete, anything we can do to limit future maintenance and to make the bridge as maintainable as possible and long lasting. And the other questions, Laura, can you repeat?
Yes. Actually, bear with me a moment.
Sorry, I didn't.
8 lanes are going to be sufficient to carry future traffic.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, oh yeah, the breakdown lane. Yeah, I mean, there's not a significant amount of growth anticipated in the area as far as traffic volumes. So, you know, currently the existing viaduct has 4 lanes on the upper deck, 3 lanes on the lower deck. And, you know, between those, they're sharing the traffic coming from the interstate and the local road network. So, you know, we do feel that 8 lanes will be sufficient for future traffic volume. With respect to a breakdown lane, we'll have 2 12-foot lanes in each direction coming from the interstate, to and from the interstate, with 4-foot shoulders. And on the local traffic, be 11-foot lanes also with 4-foot shoulders. So whether there's not a full width shoulder for a breakdown, there's certainly ample room for, if a breakdown does occur, that a vehicle can pull off the side of the roadway onto the 4-foot shoulder and be mostly out of the travel lane.
Okay. Jim Casey is asking, will this design keep a connection to State Avenue from Westwood Avenue?
Currently, the only connection that we're proposing is the connection from the shared use path down to State Avenue, which would be strictly pedestrian and bicycle connection.
John is asking, living so close to the viaduct, we were wondering if there is a list of properties to be acquired. Just wondering how we would know. Thank you.
So on the west end, the properties that we are requiring for the project are essentially the properties that are in the direct path of the new alignment. So there are 5 properties that we are purchasing or have purchased already. There's the old Q Labs building that's there on Harrison Avenue, right in the corner of Harrison and State. And then there's a string of properties leading toward Westwood on the south side. There's a car dealership, a tire store, Harston Corcoran heating and cooling place, and then there's a storage place there. It's really a vacant lot. There's a storage place behind we're not taking, but another vacant lot. But if you want to know more detail, certainly you can ask that question offline, and I'll be glad to give you more information on that.
Okay, great, thank you. Wade wants to know if the Art Deco beams on the existing Western Hills Viaduct can be preserved.
Well, I guess we get 2 thoughts on that question. So one of the things we will be doing with the existing viaduct that we intend to memorialize the existing viaduct somehow, either with plaques or monuments on either side of the valley, demonstrating the history and the historic value of the old viaduct. As far as salvaging anything on the viaduct, it's not the intent to salvage anything. However, we will consider incorporating some Art Deco elements into the new bridge as much as possible. I know there's got the arches over Spring Grove Avenue and the Mill Creek. And there may be some opportunity to incorporate some of that into the design of the new bridge.
Okay, great. We have a call-in, excuse me, an online listener. This is Tom Croft, and Tom, go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. Going back to, you had a good overhead view of the project, and I apologize if I missed this somehow, but on the west end, it seems kind of sudden the way the project ends. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So how will that ultimately resolve itself? With some future roadway plan? In other words, obviously all the cars don't stop there. They have to go somewhere. Did you already address that and I just kind of missed it?
No, we didn't. I didn't really address it. So that image may be a little misleading because that is really an older aerial. That is before basically any of the work that was done on Lick Run.
Oh.
So if you look where the project abruptly ends there.
Yeah.
There's a red line that continues.
Yeah.
To the left and a little bit to the upwards there.
I got it.
Essentially, that is the alignment of the new bridge that's been constructed over the new Lick Run Greenway.
Got it.
So there's a bridge that connects into Harrison Avenue there.
I know. I was just on it.
Okay.
I'm fine. I get it.
Okay. Dave Wormald sent in a question, and he's asked, actually, I think you might have already answered this. Is the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks actively working to design the relocation of the water main on the Viaduct and Central Parkway? And will this be done prior to the Viaduct project itself? I believe you already answered that verbally, correct?
That was answered. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Kate has asked, what is the extent of the possible work on McMillan and east of Central Parkway towards UC so far? I think several property owners would appreciate any clarification as to what the design would affect. Apparently, some of the owners have already been contacted with the possibility of changes to the size of their property. Thank you for your time.
I'm not aware of why they would have been contacted for changes to the size of their property. Our intent is to avoid properties on McMillan as much as possible. At the very most, there may be a slight amount of widening on McMillan that would take some minor strip takes of properties along McMillan. But if that question can be submitted offline, I can definitely look into that in more detail and get a better answer.
Okay, great. Keith Blake is asking, what are the plans for the water main currently connected to the current structure?
Okay, I think I maybe touched on Dave's question. That,
yes.
Waterworks is looking for a new alignment for that water main. That does not include a crossing on the new viaduct.
Charles Matthews asked, does the new I-75 interchange incorporate exits both east and west from both north and south I-75?
It'll be a full movement. It'll have connections from north and south on I-75 and connections to the west from the interstate. ODOT's going to be studying the interchange in further detail later this summer. And Scott Brown, if you can possibly comment a little more on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, Bill. One thing that I'll add that I don't know that we've talked about tonight is the interchange for I-75 with the Western Hills Viaduct is actually the very northern end of our Brent Spence Bridge replacement project. And so there was some preliminary engineering that was done for that Brent Spence Bridge replacement project that had identified a preferred alternative for the interchange with the Western Hills Viaduct. And that was prior to really the development of the Western Hills Viaduct replacement occurring. So one thing I would encourage folks to do is to check out, we've got a Brent Spence webpage that has all of our historical documents, including what the preferred alternative that we determined was for the I-75 and Western Hills Viaduct interchange. The website is brentspencebridgecorridor.com. And one other thing to note is our preferred alternative identified an interchange located to the south of the existing Western Hills Viaduct. And so we conceptually designed it to tie into the existing Western Hills Viaduct. But we have been working with the city on kind of tweaking the location of the interchange to coincide with the development of the replacement of the Western Hills Viaduct. So the plans for the interchange are still pretty conceptual, I guess is what I would say. And as Bill mentioned earlier, he had a slide. We've identified funding that we intend to use with the development that's occurred for the Western Hills Viaduct to get into more detailed design now of that interchange. And that's going to start, as Bill mentioned, in 2021. And we'll be working, hand in hand with the city in developing the interchange along with their bridge project. And, in more detail. But I would encourage anyone that's interested in information on the I-75 interchange to check out the information that we have on our BrentSpenceBridgeCorridor.com website.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Appreciate that.
Greg Lang has a question regarding one of the renderings, and he says you are showing concrete dividers between between the two pairs of eastbound lanes, along with the two pairs of westbound lanes. Where there be dividers between the east and westbound?
There's not intended to be a divider in the middle, if that's what the question is.
I believe that was the intent of the question.
Yeah.
Dinesh would like to know, can you give us a brief overview of the foundation? Is this a pile foundation, and does the vibration from the rail traffic affect the foundation design? Thank you.
Sajid, I'm going to turn this one over to you.
Thank you, Bill. Dinesh, we are thinking about using drill shafts over here. These are large diameter, 6-foot diameter concrete piles that we would be placing in the ground. So these are drill shafts. You basically drill a hole into the ground, and then you use a casing to hold the ground back. You place a rebar cage in there, you pour concrete in there. So a couple of benefits over here. We are not going to be driving any piles, at least at this point. We are not visualizing that for the main foundations. And so that would prevent any vibration affecting the rail tracks. And if we are drilling, it's not going to affect any structures around as well, because that does not cause vibrations. So it's the appropriate method for this site. It works for the railways, it works for us, and I think it will work for the neighborhood also. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Sajid.
Okay, and this question is from an unidentified participant, and the question is, how can you justify the expense of this project? Why not prioritize other city services rather than matching millions of federal funds on car infrastructure?
Well, I mean, I think we feel that the bridge is needed for the road network. You know, we have a deteriorating bridge in place that we need to do something about. So, you know, it's a matter of, if it's a do nothing, eventually we'll have to close the existing viaduct. You know, the viaduct now carries 55,000 vehicles a day. You know, diverting that traffic to other routes currently in place is really, we don't think is feasible or practical. You know, eliminating a route that's been relied on for you know, 80 plus years is pretty significant. You know, I guess, you know, we do not think it's a waste of money to replace the bridge.
As far as the costs are involved, this person would like to know, how many years will it take to pay for this project with the taxes from the users of the infrastructure?
I think that's yet to be determined. It, you know, depends on if and when we sell bonds for the project, and we have not done that yet. You know, it could be 20 years, could be 30 years, but I'm really not versed to be answering that question, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Eric, do you want to? Eric, would you like to speak any on that, or?
Yeah, I think at this point, we really don't know yet. We haven't got, you know, through our final funding yet. We're not sure how we're going to pay for everything. We're still working on that, trying to, you know, obtain any funding we can get. So we don't, like Bill said, we have not sold bonds yet, and we don't know what that burden would be at this point.
The funding we do have in place, we have local matches for, and it's been, right now it's been pay as we go. So we're not really, at this point, not going to any debt. the work we've done so far.
Okay, and this is a suggestion of why could we not just simply close the viaduct to car traffic and make it a pedestrian area and a bikeway? Hopple and US 50 can handle the traffic instead.
I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the couple questions I had. You know, it just with the volume of traffic that's on the viaduct now, and volume of traffic that's on Hopple and 50 to divert all the traffic from Western Hills, in our mind, doesn't seem like a practical solution.
Bill,
Dave
if I can add to that, the local street grid going north and south is really not capable of supporting that additional 55,000 users moving either north or south to another bridge.
Dave Wormald is asking, will the design affect the Brighton Bridge over Central Parkway, and has the plan for that bridge been finalized?
So the plans for the Brighton Bridge has not been finalized. We are currently looking at options for that bridge. That bridge is also in poor condition, and something definitely needs to be done with that bridge. But I guess the answer is no. Nothing has been finalized on that yet.
Okay. Keith Blake has said, given you have opposing traffic in adjacent lanes with no divider, what is the planned maximum speed for those lanes?
The legal speed and design speed is 35 miles per hour.
Dinesh is asking, is there a preliminary engineering report that the public can access and read?
Yes, the current study that was done by T.Y. Lin is posted on our website.
Will the SORTA funding be used to help fund this project?
I think that's yet to be determined, and I think I'm going to put that one over to Eric and see if he can have any information on that.
Sure, thank you, Bill. Yeah, the county did pass a infrastructure tax with SORTA. That money started, the collection started this year. They have not seen revenue from that yet. I think that happens in December. At that point, probably early January or February, SORTA will be putting out grant applications. We're not sure how those will be configured at this point. So we're anticipating that we know we'll apply for them. We're anticipating hopefully we can get some money from that. But at this point, we're still waiting to see how SORTA configures the application process and the requirements for the obtaining that grant money or that transit tax money.
Lisbeth observed that the shape of the planned shape of the new viaduct mirrors that of the older Western Hills Viaduct, and is asking, is there a reason for the shape in the plan rather than designing a more straightened viaduct? Also, the change occurs in the span rather than at one of the major structural elements. Can you discuss that design a little bit in more detail?
Sure, I can start that, and maybe Sajid, you can fill in here. But you know, we did as much as possible try to put a straight span across the railroad yard. So the long span with the towers, that's supported by the towers and the cables. Essentially, that is the straight portion of the bridge. In order to tie into the existing road networks at the west and at the east, we did have to introduce some curves in the road. So it's really mainly the environment and the roadway network and what we're tying into at each end that dictated the alignment of the new bridge and roadway. And Sajid, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I agree, Bill, with your answer. I'm just saying if we try to straighten it out towards the south, the alignment would go over the intermodal yard, and the railways does not like that. And if we were to try to straighten it towards the north side, we would be interfering with the existing viaduct, and we need to keep the existing viaduct open to keep the traffic running during construction. So there are constraints which pushed us in this direction. But a curve can be nice. I mean, if you are driving on a curve and coming onto a cable stayed bridge, you can basically see a changing view as you drive. You can look at the whole expanse of the structure. So it can be fun.
Thank you, Sajid.
Okay, an unidentified person said it sounds like you are not sure of the ultimate cost, yet yet you say it is worth it. How do you justify that position without data in hand?
So the ultimate cost, I mean, as far as we have a number where we believe that we can, build the entire project within $335 million. We have done cost benefit analysis that have shown that, building the viaduct at this cost, the benefit cost ratio is 4 to 1. So we have done the analysis on that. Sometimes those analyses are necessary to apply for federal funds. So we've done the analysis. We've submitted in several funding packages to the agencies that we're seeking grants from. These benefit cost analyses have been reviewed and vetted by those agencies. And while they may not agree exactly with the number of 4 to 1, the benefit cost certainly is greater than 1, and the project is worthwhile based on the cost.
Okay, great. Looks like we're one a few more. We do have Dinesh online, so I'm going to open your microphone, Dinesh. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
You able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just had a last question, not to get too much into technical details or anything. I believe there were some steel wires that would be used for the saddle system, if I understand it correctly. My basic question is, would those wires rust over time, or would those be, would those lose strength over time? That's my question.
Sajid, I'm going to ask you to answer that question, please.
Dinesh, the cable stays, the technology has evolved so much by this time that they are elements with at least 100-year design life. There are several layers of protection over the steel strand, high strength steel strand, which is used in there. So the strand itself is protected. Then there is an outer layer. Then there is the pipe itself. There have been no instances of corrosion reported in modern cable stayed structures. There have been issues with the first generation cable stays, which were built in early 60s or 70s, but nothing has been reported in the modern structures. They are very well protected, and that will be the case over here for this bridge project also.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Next, we have a couple questions from Tony Walsh. Oh, I'm sorry, Tony, you have your hand up again, but it's saying that you can't ask the questions, but there are some written, and I'll read those from Tony. Could you go into more detail about the I-75 interchange at the Parkway and also the impact on Macmillan and the properties there?
Yeah, I'll start that. I don't believe there's going to be any impact to the properties along Macmillan. I would like to ask Scott to comment a little more on that question, though.
Yeah, I mean, the I-75 interchange, as Bill mentioned earlier, it's conceptually designed to be a tight diamond interchange. So you're going to have ramps going, basically, if you're northbound on I-75, you'll be able to exit. You'll also be able to enter northbound 75. And then same thing for southbound. You'll be able to exit to the viaduct going southbound on 75 and then re-enter 75 southbound if you're coming across the viaduct. So I believe that the preferred alternative for that interchange basically maintains all the movements that are currently can be made at the interchange. But again, I'd encourage folks to check out, we've got a lot of information on our Brent Spence Bridge corridor website, and you can find a lot more information there.
Okay, here's a question. What will happen to the subway tubes at the east end of the bridge?
The subway tubes are, at this point, are going to remain in place. We don't have a plan to remove them, and actually, we haven't looked at that in too close a detail as far as the realignment of Central Parkway.
Okay. You mentioned that you were using some bonds to cover the cost. This is not the only expense for the city during this period. I encourage you to reflect on the burden that this adds to our tax base and to withdraw this project in favor of more financially stable solutions to transportation.
Okay, I'm going to say the comments noted.
Another question is, will the existing viaduct be open to traffic throughout construction? I believe you all touched on this, but you might want to discuss that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, the plan is to keep the existing viaduct open, fully open to the extent possible during the construction of the new bridge. And at some point there will be a full closure of the viaduct to do the tie-ins at both the east and west end. The extent of that time frame is not yet determined. It's heavily influenced by the construction of the interchange and how that traffic and ramps could be built in stages and phases. So, but the overall intent is to try to keep build a new bridge offline from the existing viaduct so we can maintain traffic on the old viaduct as long as possible.
Somebody would like to know, where will the new Duke substation be located?
So currently the existing substations on the south side of the existing viaduct between Buck Street and Spring Grove Avenue. The location of the new substation is to be north of the existing viaduct, along with a new transmission line that currently is crossing the existing railroad yard on the south side of the existing viaduct, and that transmission line is going to move to the north.
Okay. And Greg Lang wants to know if there was any consideration for reusing and maintaining the existing viaduct for pedestrian and as a bike path only, or maybe as a park and recreation area.
Right now the intent and the plan is to remove the viaduct once it's no longer being used or used for traffic. So at this point there's no serious consideration to do that.
Okay. Stephanie Sumro Dumas asks, several street exits are being eliminated. Do you have a list of which ones?
Not offhand here, but I can, we can follow up on that question.
Okay. And then another question is, how does the city plan on securing the remaining $200 million in the price of the viaduct?
Can you ask that one question again? Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. How does the city plan to secure the remaining funding needed to fund the viaduct?
Well, as we showed in the presentation, there are a number of grants and potential funding sources that we could potentially use for the construction new viaduct, federal funds, other state funds, and the possible funds from the new transit tax.
Okay, will the concrete channel in the Mill Creek be extended below the new bridge?
There's no plans to do that.
Keith Blake is asking, what is the percentage of the daily traffic from the elimination of the traffic access from Spring Grove Avenue? I assume this traffic will have to use alternative local roads to get to Central Parkway and Western Hills Viaduct. Has any thought, or has there been any thought as to the impact and cost of this rerouting?
So currently from the existing viaduct, pre-COVID numbers, it's approximately 9,000 vehicles a day to and from Spring Grove to the lower deck. We have looked at some travel demand models where we're looking at the possibility of eliminating that connection and looking at where that traffic is being diverted. When ODOT gets further into the detailed design of the interchange at Western Hills Viaduct, I believe that's going to be studied in more detail. Scott, you may want to comment on that, but that's, if we're looking at, how we're diverting traffic, the interchange itself and the improvements on I-75 is going to have a big impact on the flow of traffic.
Dinesh is asking, would the rainwater be drained into the Lick Run Greenway?
So stormwater from the bridge itself is going to have to be captured and piped to a storm sewer system. I'm not sure, I'm not sure if I understand the question as far as going into Lick Run Greenway.
I think it's a question about where is the water from the viaduct going to be drained into?
Right. Well, it'll be piped into existing storm sewers or new storm sewers that need to be built to accommodate the drainage.
Okay. An argument was made for the bridge type based on 4-hour work windows. Are the existing pier removals and construction of the new drilled shafts going to take place in 4-hour work windows also?
So and Sajid, you may want to add on to what I'm going to say here, but the 4-hour work windows were basically the window of time that we had to work over tracks. So, at the most, on most of the tracks, a 4-hour window was at the limit of what the railroad would expect that they would have the track free of train traffic. Some tracks in the railroad yard are busier than others. Some are very busy, and some getting a 4-hour window of track time over a railroad track is near impossible. With the 2-hour window being more reasonably expected. And Sajid, you want to comment a little more on that?
I agree, Bill. The middle 560 feet of the rail yard are the rail tracks. The middle 560 feet are very busy. In that area, that's where we have the 2-hour, 4-hour window restriction. The construction of the foundations is outside that area. So that is not impacted by those windows. It is the overhead work, swinging the load into position, putting a beam into position, making a connection, which is subject to that requirement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Kate is asking, what are the plans for the land remaining when the 2 large cloverleaf ramps are eliminated?
Right now there is no plan.
Okay, and there was a similar question from Tony Walsh asking, also the parkway appears to be moved to the west. Is there a plan for the unused property existing parkway?
Once again, there's no plan on that yet.
Okay. Does the city need to pay for the property for the new bridge?
There will have to be a new easement established for the new bridge. Currently, the existing bridge is over railroad property and it is there through an aerial easement. Most likely we'll have to pay for the increase in easement area for the new bridge. That dollar amount has not yet been established though.
Will the construction of the bridge and approaches begin in 2021, or will it just be the adjacent support work like local roadway realignments and the like? If so, when in 2021?
So in 2021, we expect to have some demolition of the buildings begin on the west side and some site preparation. We're also looking at early foundation work, starting at the west and moving east until the transmission lines across the railroad yard are relocated. We're a little restricted on how much work we can actually do within the railroad yard and underneath the electric lines. But essentially we would be on the construction, we'd be moving from west to east on the early phases.
Great. All right, we have one last question, and this is from Tony, and I believe you might have already discussed this, so I just want to make sure if there's anything else you have to add. But he says, can you go into more detail about the I-75 interchange at the Parkway and also the impact to McMillan and properties there?
I think we've answered that, and I think Scott did a good job explaining that also. So.
Okay, great. And we have time for one last question. This is, will a retaining wall be needed on the south side of the western approach by the self-storage building?
There will be retaining walls along the roadway beginning at State Avenue and heading west. By the time we get to the storage building area, we may be completely at grade at that point. If we're not, the retaining walls will not be that high.
Okay, great. I'm noticing a couple questions about will this recording be posted after the meeting? And I wanted to let you know that yes, we will be posting this recording, and you can get a link to it on the city website at cincinnati-oh.gov/WHV. And with that, I am going to turn this back over to Ursula.
Laura, if I may, can you please read the comment from Greg Lang over there? I'm very interested in his comment.
He says, excellent report with alternates and great presentation. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the comment there.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone for participating and all the great questions. I think I counted 50 questions. So really appreciate it. Your opportunity to follow up. We have an online feedback form on our website, which is what Laura just mentioned, cincinnati-oh.gov/WHV. So there's the online feedback form there. There's also a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, a couple of fact sheets, and the renderings themselves, and a meeting summary, which will highlight the key points that were talked about during the presentation. Most of the content is up right now, but once we sign off, I'm going to go and do a couple more updates so the rest of the information is on. I had to wait until after the meeting to assess how many people for participating in some other details. But as this slide shows, the recording for tonight's meeting, there's a YouTube link. That's a pretty long link. Apologize for that. But we don't have a custom link yet. We need 100 subscribers to get there. But if you go to our website, you'll be able to easily click on that link for YouTube. So just one click of a button with you via whatever device you use. So that'll get you there. It's also going to be on city cable as well. Contacts, if you have more follow-up questions, would be me, Ursula Miller, and of course, Bill Shefsick, the project manager. And our contact information is listed here on this slide and will be repeated on the website. And just a final note, I'd like the audience to know that we're following guidelines that are known as NEPA, which is National Environmental Policy Act. And that's to make sure we're providing a lot of outreach and opportunity for public feedback. So please read more about that requirement and how we're following it. And we're always open for suggestions and ideas. So thank you so much to everyone. And with that, I'll say good evening.
Thank you all.